Hello, good people. Okay, any questions? Anything? Excellent. Let's continue with a hashing. So, we started to speak about open addressing. We'll get to it later. We started to speak about open addressing. In open addressing, the hash function takes two parameters. One of them is a key itself. The key in this example is just a number, but it might as well be, instead of a number, a very long string, and in which case we will use probably the dot product. For simplicity, let's stick to the case that k is a number, I, which is an attempt number, the probe number, this is my first attempt, I equals 0, second attempt, I equal 1, and so on. And we ended up with an example of insertion. And I remind everybody, open addressing, meaning that all the data is stored in the hash table itself. No linked list, not auxiliary data. So I want to insert 12. If my hash function is just k plus I modulo the size of the table, then 12 plus 0 is still 12. Modulo 8 gives me 4. I'm checking cell number 4. There is nobody living there. So I'll insert a 4 into this cell. Next, I am inserting 15. Again, attempt first while, attempt 0. And that's while I'll insert 15 to this, to cell 7. I want next to insert a 20. 20 plus 0 modulo 8 is 4, going to cell number 4. Somebody is living there. So my next attempt is just k plus I, which naturally just moves me, makes me move one cell downward. K plus I just moves me one cell downward. Of course, cyclic, modulo 8. So 12. Next cell that I'll try to insert 22. This cell is empty, and that's where 20 is going to live. Insert 23. All fine. But that's why, sorry, insert 23, look at cell 7, 15 lives there, so I'll insert it in my second attempt, would be at address 23 plus 1 modulo 8, meaning makes me move one cell downward in a cyclic way. So that's where 23 is going to live, and so on. Finally, I'm going to insert 28. So that was the insertion algorithm. And a little disclaimer, nothing of what I'm saying is true. I'll actually have to re-explain and adjust the insertion very shortly. But at the moment, it's fine to believe that this is the whole insertion algorithm. Searching a key, I'm just asking, well, I know what the key that I'm searching for is, so I know where it's going to, where I would try to put this key. But you're searching for something, try to remember what would be the last place that you'd put it, and so on. So, to search, I'm just repeating the probing sequence. when will I'll stop the search? I'll stop the search either when I find my key or alternatively when I hit an empty cell. How come? Because if I hit an empty cell, it means that I tried all the natural places at which this key would have lived, I would have inserted to, and none of them contain the key. Let's see how it works. I'm searching for, that was too fast, I'm searching for 28, age of 28, 28 modulo 8 is what? 4, right? 28 modulo 8 is 4. Who is living there? 12. It's not 28. Let's ask what would be the second place that I would put it on, which is cell number 5, not 28. Hitting 28, voila, my search ended. Next, let's search for 16. Looking for where would I place 16. 16 modulo 8 is 0. So I'm checking the first place that 16 would have lived. Not there, it's 23, different than 16. My next attempt to insert, had I been inserting 16, that would be where I would try next to place 16. This cell, but this cell is empty, so we can conclude that 16 is nowhere in the table. Make sense? We stop the search when either we hit an empty cell, then our search fail, or when I equals m minus 1, I equals it's m minus 1, I is the size of the table, I should probably use a larger font, I is equals, stops the search when t of age of k and I, the table at the cell that I'm looking for, equals to x, meaning that we found it, or I stop the search where t of age of k and I is empty, or, and then the search fail, of course, no. Or when I equals m minus 1, meaning that I looked everywhere in the table. And none of the cells contains x, the value I'm after, meaning that in both these cases, this is our indication that the search failed. It is an unsuccessful search. We looked for a key that is not in the table. And as we mentioned already with respect to chain hashing, unsuccessful search takes more time. There is on average more elements to check until we realize that our key is not there. Any questions so far? Okay. So next, let's see how do I do deletion. Very simple. How could I do deletion in an array? I'm going to delete a key. I want to delete a key. I want to delete 20. Guys, can you see it, or should I stop and increase the font? Still readable? Anybody?
I can read it.
Okay, perfect. Thanks, Maya. So I want to delete 20. How would I do it? Well, let's find 20. 20 modulo 8 is 4. It's not 20. 20 plus 1 modulo 8 is 5. That were 20 used to live. And we just delete it zeroing this cell. So far, absolutely obvious, completely straightforward. But now let's see what happens if I'm searching 28 at this moment. Searching for 28, 28 mod 8 is 4. It's not there. Let's try the next cell. It's empty, what the criteria says. If it's empty, stop your search, which is a bad idea because it's actually here. And why is 28 lives here? Because when I inserted 28, there used to be somebody living right here, 20 to be precise, and the 20 prevented me from inserting 28 to this cell. So I had to move one cell forward. However, 20 ceased to exist, but it created a bug in the when I'm searching for 28. Make sense? There is by deleting 20, now my search algorithm fails to find 28. So how do we solve it? We are placing a dummy value, a value that is different than any other value, -1, flag, gravestone. Somebody used to live here, but it's not anymore. There is a dummy in this cell. And this dummy makes this cell have some dual citizenship. The cell now appears with two ways. Is a cell empty or is a cell occupied? And the answer is yes. The cell is empty and the cell is occupied at the same time. Meaning that if I'm searching now for 28, then my search path would start at cell 4, occupied. Dummy for the search purposes is considered as occupied. So continue your search. Okay, so the cell is occupied for search purposes. But what happened when I want to insert a new value? If I'm going to insert now a new value, when I'm inserting a new key, it's absolutely fine to replace the dummy with this new key. If I insert 13, then 13 modulo 8 is 5. Looking at this cell, there is a dummy living here, and I happily override it with a new element. Okay, so the dummy considered as occupied for search purposes, but considered as empty for insert purposes. How do I maintain the hash table? Meaning that what happens if I insert and delete a lot of elements? Insert and delete, insert and delete. Well, it could be that I have very few keys in the table. The table contains very few keys, but at the same time there are a lot of dummies. So the search time, that we'll analyze a bit better soon, the search time is now quite large because of all the dummies. What should we do? Wait for a moment that no users needs your data and perform this maintenance. Move all the elements out of the table, zero the table, and reinsert each and every keys. That's also a good opportunity to increase the size of the table if you need and do the rehashing. Okay, and in this way you eliminate all the dummies. By the way, I assume that you have seen something similar in 345. So as I said, I'm not very concerned of repeating it if you already seen it. And this part I'm completely following the book, by the way, the CLRS. We used the function that we used, age of k and I, that we used was k plus I modulo 8. Now, if I'm using this function, as I said, I cannot work on long keys. I can function was a bad function even when I just used this. It was a bad function even in the case of chain hashing, where there was no I in the game, it was just K model. So, however, even this function, I'll use some other hash function, H prime of K, no I in the game. For example, multiplication function, A times K, plus I modulo M. What about this function? Good or bad? Well, it's very good hash function, H prime of K plus I modulo M, which just means if I try one location to insert my key and this place is occupied, I'll just move to the next place, one down in the table, one down, etc. It's a great hash function if your goal is to explain to students how to use double addressing, how to use this two parameters hash function. That's pretty much summarize the good things that we can say about the hash, this hash function. Because let's go back a few slides. But we are using this type of function that is a linear probing, and let's pretend that I'm doing a search of 80. Let's do at this moment a search of 84. What happened in search of 84? 84 modulo 8 is 4, so I'm looking for 88 in this cell. Occupied, 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 and only this is a free cell that finally gives me the signal to stop this search. Finally, I found what I'm after. Okay, so what is the problem with this search? That I am using both Zoom for recording as well as OBS, and I want to have both versions. So what's the problem that I'm trying to highlight? That when you look at a table, that let's say that inside this table 50% of the table is occupied and the rest of the 50% is free. And now I'm going to insert a new key, and my chances of hitting an occupied element is of course 50% if the hash function is fair enough, is a good hash function. However, once I hit one of the elements in this big sequence of keys, this big cluster, what will happen? I will go down in the very same way, no matter what was the key that I was after. The moment that I entered this big cluster, I'm doomed to stay inside the cluster until I'll get to the end of the cluster, inserting the new element right here, and spent a lot of time and makes the status of the future searches even worse because this cluster will become larger and larger. How can I avoid this problem, the problem of creating big clusters? How can I avoid this problem? Of course, if I have fewer keys, then the chances that I hit an occupied cell in my first attempt would be smaller, but with the same number of keys, I still have the same chance of collision. I have the same probability that my first attempt will hit an occupied cell. That is, that I'm inserting K2 and I already hit one key, K1. There is still a chance that this happens, and this chance is exactly 50% if the array is half full, half empty. However, what I'd like to get is that the probing sequence, wherever K1 would go in its next attempt, if there is a next attempt, and wherever K2 should go, these next attempts should be more sensitive, should be different for either different keys or different attempts, or both, both different keys and different attempts. Once again, if I had two keys that collided in some attempt, I very much hope that in the next attempt, either because the keys are different or because it's not the same I, these two keys will find themselves in different location in the table. They will not consistently. Problem here is that any two keys that collided once will keep colliding in any future attempt. All I need is to say my future attempts depend on either at which attempt I am. So my fifth attempt will take me to different place than my first attempt, or make everything also depends on the value of the key itself. So linear probing, bad. Easy to understand, but not a great idea otherwise. And yeah, and I'll ask you in the next homework to analyze how bad can linear probing be. What should a double hashing tells me? Double hashing will say age1 is your first hash function. Age1 is your first hash function. Age2 tells me by how much should I jump. It's another hash function, age2 of k, and age2 of k tells me that for one particular value, if age2 of k is say 3, then it means that I landed with k1 at some location, but that would be with k1 apologize, I'm a bit under weather, so I'm sure that you're noticing. Apologize for being fuzzy today. K1 landed somewhere, but my first attempt will be not the next cell, but 3 cells down. My next attempt, 3 cells down. My next attempt, 3 cells down, of course, modulo m, while K2, if I think about K2 and I'm lucky enough so that age 2 of K2 is only 5, will be 5, then I'm jumping by 5 elements, jumping by 5 elements, and so on. So even if they meet once in the future, in the future attempts, they will sprinkled in different location in the hash table. This is a great method, but you need to be careful. Why? Why should you be careful? Because if let's take age 2 of k to be k mod 5. I'll take age 2 of k will be k modulo 5, and I'm asking you to insert 15 into the table that we had earlier. Let's rewrite this table. And I'm asking you to insert 15. And 15 modulo 8 is should be 7, right? 15 modulo 8 should be 7. So here goes 15 to live right here. Let's insert a let's insert 12 right now. 12 mode, no. Let's insert 15. Yeah, I'll change it a bit. I don't want to think online. Let's assume that I started actually with inserting, sorry about it. I started with inserting 7, started with inserting 23. Here goes 23, and now I want to insert 15. 23 is living right here. I'm going to insert 15, and I'm using the hash function age of ki, as you see, would be k plus I times age 2 of k, which is k mod 5. So hk, let's write it larger. Age of k comma I is k plus I of k mod 5, all of it mod 8. So why did I pick k mod 5? So different keys have different level of jump. Some will jump by 1 step, some will jump by 2 steps, some will jump by 3 or 4 steps, and so on. So I'm creating reversibility, and I break to some amount the problem with clustering. Please, somebody, what happened when I'm inserting 15? Help. People? No?
Won't you just be inserting in the same place over and over again, since you're going to be multiplying I times 0?
Thanks, Trevor. Absolutely. My first attempt to insert 15 is at 15 plus I0, so that's fine. I'm in my first attempt. 15 modulo 8 gives me 7. I'm attempting to insert 15 to this cell, but it's occupied. So where is my second attempt? I equals 1. My second attempt would be at 15 plus k mod 5, all of it mod 8. That's my second attempt. I equals 1. K mod 5, however, k mod 5 is unfortunately 0. So I'm inserting my cell. So in my second attempt, I'm probing cell number 7 again, because 1 times 0 is still 0. So I'm probing this cell again. Then I'm moving to I equals 2. And now it's 2 times 0 plus 15, which again makes me probe the very same cell, and so on. And I'm doing it exactly m times, m, which is equals 8 many times, this probing of the single cell, and then the insert or the insert algorithm says, hey, the table is completely full. I was attempting each and every possible I, and all the cells are full, so you need to desperately you must resize this table, increase its size, and because there is no more room, which is of course very far from the truth. All the table is empty beside this number. So you just need to be more careful about what h2 of k might be. You definitely don't want it to be 0, but nobody needs to tell you that it's just a clear algebraic function. You can definitely say that h2 of k equals k mod 5 if not 0, if k mod 5 is not 0, otherwise it is just your lucky number 3. Okay. Else h2 of k will be 3. Why? Because 3 is different than 3 is different than 0, so I don't want to pick 0. Did I solve the problem completely? Still not there. Because what happened if the table is a factor of 2? Table is of size 8, and h2 of k is 2. What happened in this case? I'm quite liking that I'm only inserting into the even places until I'm coming back and return to the very same number. So it might be that I'm performing the same sequence of probes, right? If h2, let's make it easier. If the table is of size 8, but h2 of k happens to be 4, then let's say that I'm inserting k at k1 at right here. Let's take k2, some key that collides with k1. What do? I move 4 steps downward. So my next key, k2, will be right here. But now I'm inserting k3 that collides with either of them. So where should, let's say that k3, my first attempt with k3 would be to insert it right here, occupied. So my next attempt would be in the same place, plus 4. 7 plus 4 is 11. Modulo 8 brings me to 3, but k1 is living there. So let's increment I, and now I'm looking at this cell plus 8, which is 0, so I'm back to this cell. And all I do in my 8 attempts is just jumping between these two cells exactly 8 times. Makes sense, right? So you just, how should you prevent it? You just look at what's the value of h2, and you check that it will return a number which is relatively prime, doesn't have any common coefficient, with m. Which way can you do it? If you want m to be a power of 2, we discussed all the advantages that are coming when m is a power of 2, then you will use the m to be any odd number. You just look at the function and just make sure that it will return an odd number. How can I guarantee it? Say that h2 of k, well, h3 of k equals 2 times some other function, h2 of k plus 1. So 2 times h2 of k is always even, plus 1 is always odd, and I never run into this issue. Another solution, pick m to be prime. then you are sure that if you are using this function, no matter what is age 2 of k, as long as it's not 0, uh, and you are made m attempts and didn't find any empty cells, it is because the table is 100% full. No empty places at all. Okay, and I expect everybody to understand everything about what is good and what can be wrong about double hashing. And the last function in this sequence, we had it on a previous slide, would be age of k and I would be age 1 of k, for example, the dot product, plus I, just as before. So far it's linear probing, but now I'm changing it to be I square. So the jumps that I'm doing are becoming larger and larger. So even if I collided with another key in my first attempt and the other key third attempt, then my next attempt is different than this other key's next attempt. I should say this sentence again. If two keys are colliding but not in the same attempts of these keys, one is in the first and the other one is in the second, then the next location they will land in different places. Again, breaking the problem of creating big cluster, or minimizing this method, minimizing this problem. Okay, moving along. What do you want to keep under control when you're creating an open addressing? Well, to remind you, there is the alpha, the load factor. Alpha is the number of keys divided by the number of cells in the table. Right? Alpha is n over m. In chain hashing, when we were talking about chain hashing, we said alpha should be a constant, order 1. Alpha should be a constant. 1 is to 3 is to 5 is to, but don't let this number go. But we didn't care very much which constant it is. Now we are talking about open addressing, meaning that all the keys are only in the table, as opposed to chain hashing, meaning that and every cell contains at most one key, implying that alpha is for sure smaller than 1. However, I want to analyze how is the size of alpha controls the search time. How is the size of alpha controlling the search time? Is this enough to keep alpha, say, to keep alpha as 0.9? Will this behave well? Should I make it much smaller than 1? Is this a good cell? So let's do the following part. Let's think about our hash table. Here is our hash table. And let's say that this table consists of 50% of the cells are occupied and the other 50% is free. I think that blue is an excellent color to denote free. And I'm asking, in the process of find, I'm performing find of x, and for simplicity, let's assume that x not in the table. And I'm compressing now a proof that is much hairier, I think, in CLRS. So I'm performing find of X, unsuccessful search because it always takes more time. What are the probability that we need exactly one probe? Help. How could it be that my search process contains only one probe? That after one probe I already decided that X is not in the table. And remember, all I know is that the table is 50% occupied and 50% free. I'm not saying anything about the clustering here. That's not what I'm trying to convey. I'm just saying these are the portions of free versus occupied. 50% free, 50% occupied. How come the search realized after one probe? You definitely need at least one probe. What one probe? If I'll assume that every index has the same chance to be hit, but the chances that you need only one probe, the only chance is that your first probe landed in the free zone, and if you landed in the free zone, then your search immediately says X is not there, because if X was there, then it would be where I probed directly. Right? So the chance that I need exactly one probe is the chance that I need exactly one probe is exactly 50%, as I didn't get the name. Trevor said it correctly. Sorry, Cole. Yeah. Thank you. So that's exactly 50%. By the way, I still don't remember getting solutions to my challenge question that I sent you about skip list with 2 levels. It's little competition. Let's see who nails it first. Okay, that's that I need exactly one probe. Now, in other words, what's the probability that I need? Probability that I need more than one probe. This probability is 50% as well, because it means that in my first attempt I hit an occupied cell, which is not X, because we said that it's an unsuccessful search, and in this case I need at least one extra probe. Okay. What's the probability that I need exactly? So what is my expected time for this sequence of insertion? That's essentially all I need to know. How does the expected search time looks like? And I am cutting a bit corners. What my search time consists of? I need at least one probe for sure, plus there is 50% chance that I'll need one additional probe, plus now I needed the one additional probe. There is a 50% chance that this one additional probe, 1 over half, times that the second probe landed on occupied area as well. So in this case I need one extra probe. So with probability of half, I'll need one extra probe, and possibly I'm done, or there is 50% chance yet that I'll need one extra probe. And the thing continues, but let's stop at this moment and try to evaluate what this expression looks like. Now, to be precise, the chance that I'll need another probe is a bit smaller, because if my hash function has any self-respect, it will not retry a cell that I already tried, but it just means that there are even fewer cells which are occupied. So the total number of probes actually is a bit smaller, but these changes of the correction to this half is very minuscule. So let's leave it. What this expression so far looks like, let's just open the parentheses, and this is just 1 plus half times 1 plus half times half times 1, also known as quarter, plus 1 half times half, by that is, I failed in my second probe, I failed in my third probe, always in occupied cells, so it will be 1 over 8 plus 1 over 16, and even if this summation going on forever, this number is at most 2. Okay, so if the cell is half empty, if the table is half empty and half full, then the expected number of probes that I need for an unsuccessful search on average is 2. That's really, really cool. It means that no matter how many keys you have, as long as alpha is only half, no matter how many keys you have, there is no log n in the picture, there is nothing that depends on how large is your data. You will need, on average, only 2 probes. I think that that's fantastic. It means that there is great chance that whomever you are searching for, remember, successful search, it takes less time than unsuccessful search. I need more probes in the unsuccessful search. So in the search time, either in my first attempt or in my second attempt, I am done in almost all the cases. On average, it's quite rare that you'll need more than 2 probes. It's exponentially smaller that you'll need more than 3 probes, and so on. So that's what this sum looks like if indeed alpha is half. Let's change the table a bit. And let's say that right now the table is 90% full and only 10% free. Let's look at the same average, expected number of probes that I'm performing. What's the chance that I need exactly 1 probe? Help? 10%. Only 10% of the cells are free, and that's the only case that you need only 1 probe. So what's the chance that I'll need another probe? How do it come that I need another probe? It happens because I hit an occupied cell in my first attempt, for which the chance is 0.9 now instead of half. Instead of 0.5, it's 0.9. And if I did need another search, here is the time that I'll spend for this other search, but there is a chance that I'm not done yet. There is a chance that I need to continue, and the chance that I need to continue would be 0.9 times 1 plus 0.9 times, and so on. And this summation, this sequence of parentheses continues becoming more nested and more nested, but let's stop already at this part. I just called it 0.9 times 1 plus 0.9, and again, let's open this expression. What are you getting? 1 plus 0.9 plus 0.9 square plus 0.9 cube plus dot 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 dot. Okay, 1 which is 0.9 to the 0 plus 0.9, 0.9 times 0.9, 0.9 cube, and so on and so forth. Somebody remember the formula of such a geometric sum? What is a formula that tells me how much is 1 plus alpha square plus alpha cube plus dot 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 when alpha is smaller than 1? And intentionally I'll go all the way to infinity when alpha is smaller than 1. So this expression, what is this equal to? There is a formula that expresses it.
I believe it's the first index divided by 1 minus the rate at which it's growing.
Exactly. It's 1 over 1 minus alpha. So back to our cell, the expected number of probes that you're performing is 1 divided by 1 minus alpha. Is good news or bad news? Well, depending on alpha. Alpha, the load factor. If alpha is 0.99, then on average you need 100 probes until you find whomever you are looking for, because 1 divided by 1 minus 0.99 is 100. That's a lot, and that's only the average. It means that there is a lot of finds, a lot of searches that takes much more. If you'll keep alpha to be only half, which is the recommended policy always, then we need only 2 probes on average. In other words, make sure that M, the size of the table, is at least 2 times N, the number of keys that you are intending to do. And the moment that you are beyond this threshold, double or at least increment the size of the table. Okay, we are good with this part. I will skip the further discussion about why a dot product works very, very well in practice, and why essentially you cannot no hash function that doesn't know what the data is can be better than this number. And let's switch to our next topic, which is talking about shortest path in graphs. Just want to remind everybody what graphs are. Just refreshing materials that hopefully you have seen in at least one course earlier, probably many. G of capital V and capital E. We called it a possibly directed, possibly undirected graph. It consists of a set V, which is the set V1, V2, dot, 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 Vn of vertices, say, Facebook users, here they are, V1, V2, V3, V4, and E, which is a set E1, E2, all the way up to EM. These are edges in the graph, and every EI is a pair of vertices. 2 vertices that they are friends, Facebook friends. If this graph is the graph of the social network of Facebook. So I can say that E1 is the pair V2, V3. Okay, meaning they are Facebook friends. V2, another edge V2, V4, another edge V1, V4. And since they are friends, it's mutual, then there is no direction to this edge. Okay, so to denote an edge, I can be more obnoxious or less obnoxious. I can give each edge a different name, which is something that I have to do in case of parallel edges. Parallel edges makes the notation way more obnoxious. Parallel edges, because now each one of the edges that connects V1 to V4 should have a different name. In all the applications that I'll discuss with you, I can assume that I don't have parallel edges that connect the same pair. Again, I'm talking about the undirected case. There is an edge between V1 and V4, only if there is an edge between V4 and V1. So in all the applications that we will discuss, we can assume that there are no parallel edges. That is, either there is no edge at all, or if there are several edges and say each one has some different length and I'm looking for the shortest path, I'll only keep the one that is the shortest. No reason why not to keep these different edges. So in this case, I can assume that there is only one edge, and the advantage is that from now on, the name of the edge is just the name, identifies the name of the two vertices that it connects. Saves quite some headache. To denote an edge, I'll just tell you what are the two vertices that this edge connects. Okay, and that was about undirected graph, but I can have some of the edges, all the edges, be directed. Say V2 follows V3, but V3 is not following V2, and then the directed edge has, well, direction, has an arrow directing it. Please tell me about two ways to store graph in the memory of your computer. I need at least adjacency list is one method, which would say for the graph that I just stupidly deleted, for this graph that will have V1 that connects V2 to V3 and V4, and I'll introduce one more vertex from V2 will connect also V5. Then in this list, I have an entry in adjacency list. I have an entry for vertex 1, I have an entry for vertex 2, 143, 144, and 145. And each one is just containing the beginning of a linked list of all the vertices that are neighbor to this vertex. So the list of vertex 1 will contain all its neighbors, namely the list of 1 will be vertex list of vertex 1 will contain vertex 2. The list of vertex 2, which is quite social, contains V5, V1, and V3. The list of vertex 4, I don't see it, and the list of vertex 5 is only connected to vertex 3, and vertex 3 is connected to vertex 2, V2, and V5. Okay, that's adjacency list. What's the memory requirement? If we will use in all the discussion about graphs, n is always the number of vertices, always. The cardinality, the size of the set of vertices, meaning number of vertices. And m will be the number of edges in your graph. So what's the memory requirement of adjacency list? It's quite cool. The memory requirement is order m, correct? And because it just depends on how many edges you have in the graph. What else I can do with this list? If I want to ask who are the friends of a vertex, the friends of V2, I just need to go to this entry in the array and go over all the friends one after the other. Which operations I cannot do efficiently or less efficiently. If I'll ask either are V5, oh, that's the reason I have two V5. If I have is V5 friends of this, is this V5, is he or is he not friend of V3? Is there an edge between them? The only way to do it is to go to the list of V3 and scan this whole list. Maybe there are plenty of vertices. So checking friendshipness, checking if there is an edge might take linear time, but other operations like going through scanning all the vertices is much faster. And the other way to store the graph?
Adjacency matrix.
Adjacency matrix. By the way, I missed the name of the ladies that I answered before.
Maya.
Maya, thanks. Adjacency matrix. Basically, here is a matrix. You have n and n many entries, meaning that without comparisons, you have to have n squared many cells, where in this cell, I either write 1 or 0, depending on, in this matrix, Mij is 1, if and only if Vi, Vj belongs to the list of edges. Vi and Vj, I'll write it again, it's 1 if and only if Vi, Vj, this pair belongs to the list of edges. They are friends. And then in constant time I can ask for a particular pair, but of course I'm possibly spending a lot of time. Okay, the highlight of the next chapter will be Dijkstra algorithm and a lot of variants of Dijkstra algorithms. I'm sure that many of you have seen Dijkstra before. That's absolutely fine. Again, good to rehash it and good to see variants and optimization of this rehashing. Let's start with the slides. Okay, it will do for this time. Yeah, sorry about it. As I said, not my day. Let's talk. Oh no, that's bad. Path in a graph. We are talking about path in a graph, list of vertices. For example, v1, v2, v3, v4, v5 will be a path if between every pair of consecutive vertices there is an edge in the graph. Maybe it's a directed edge, maybe it's undirected graph and it's undirected edges. Trust me, writing what is a path if I have parallel edges is becoming really obnoxious. Here I just need to ask who are the vertices that participate in the path, because there is only one, at most one edge between a pair. And I'm looking at, I assume that maybe my graph is given with edges assigned to each edge, weight or a cost assigned to each individual edge. For example, to use the edge from V1 to V2 will cost me $4. To use the edge from V4 to V5 will cost me $1. Somebody really wants to increase the traffic in this area, so to drive from V2 to V3, actually I'll be paid $2. I'll earn $2. That is, I have to pay minus $2 and so on. What is the weight of the path? The weight of the path is just the sum of the individual weights. How much does it cost me to drive all the way from V1 to V5? Okay. And the shortest path problem from U to V, everybody knows it. Let's define it once formally. To find the shortest path from U to V is just find the path with the smallest weight, or a path with the smallest weight, and we will give it a letter, delta. We'll say that delta of U to V is just the minimum out of all the path that starts at U and goes all the way to V. That's the minimum weight. So delta is a property. It depends on the graph itself. It has nothing to do with the algorithm. And what should we do if there is no such path? Maybe the graph is not connected at all. There are two vertices that there is no path between them. We'll just use the definition that delta uv is infinity. It will make it easier. If it's infinity, it means as far as we know, there is no path in the graph. Here is the interesting thing. Not always I can speak about the distance along the path. Right? Sometimes the question just makes no sense. The moment that I have edges with negative weights, things stop to make sense. Because what is a path with a minimum weight from V1 to V5? Let's try. V1 to V2 to V3 to V4 to V5 will cost me 4 plus 2 minus 5 plus 1, some number. However, what happens if from V2 I'll actually make a cycle over here and only then go to V5? What is the cost of just going through this cycle? It is 2 minus 5 plus 1, making it minus 2. So I earn something by walking around this cycle. And if I'll walk once again around this cycle, I'll earn even more. And if I'll go around the cycle once again, I'll earn even more. And so I can push it all the way down to minus infinity. Meaning the question of what is a path, the minimum weight path from V1 to V5 in this graph just doesn't have any meaningful answer. Can be minus infinity. That is, the moment that I have, it's not necessarily the negative edges. I might have a graph with negative edges, but once I have a negative cycle, then I need to realize that there is no meaning to the question what's a or best path between them. Here is a little tiny or very obvious lemma that we are going to use many times through this course, at least 6 times in this course in different contexts. What this lemma tells you: assume that what I showed you right here is the shortest path from S, the source, to T, the target. The solid edges are the optimum path from S to T. And now I ask you a simpler question, easier question. I notice that along this path, the vertex U appeared and the vertex V appeared. What is the shortest path between U and V? Answer: you might as well use a portion of the solid path, just use a portion that goes from U to V. Of course, you don't need this edge and you don't need this edge as well, but these solid edges you definitely need to use. And why? Remember, the solid edges are defined with respect to S and T, but had you have a better way to go from U to V, it's cheaper to go on the dotted path rather than the solid path, then you'd also can use it to go on your way from S to T. Mainly go from S to U, use a dotted path, cheaper than the solid subpath, and then go to T, and it's cheaper, just cut and paste. This is really trivial to state, completely obvious, but it's extremely powerful because a lot of the problems have this substructure optimality. That is, that the solution to the big problem contains inside it a solution to smaller problems. Smaller problems like, how do I go only from U to V? Well, the solution to this problem is used when I'm looking for the solution for the bigger problem of how to reach from further away vertices, S and T. It means that I can start with very tiny problems and now make my way into larger and larger and larger problems. And when I'm looking for solution to the larger problem, I'll use the fact that I already computed the solution to a smaller problems. Of course, I need the oracle, I need somebody to tell me that U and V are on the shortest path from S to T. So maybe I'll have to try a few attempts. And that's exactly where dynamic programming is so powerful. But once, if I know that U and V are on the shortest path, and in addition I already computed the shortest path from U to V, then I can use it when I'll compute the path from S to T. And the Dijkstra algorithm is just an example of dynamic programming that we'll see many other examples. Let's talk about triangle inequality in the last remaining minute. Triangle inequality will tell you that look at every 3 vertices, U, V, and X. The distance from U to V, delta of U to V, is small or equal than the distance from U to X plus the distance from X to V. Why? Because when I looked for the optimum path from U to V, I didn't have any constraints to satisfy. What am I doing when I'm going from U to X and from X to V? I'm looking for a path that I must go through X. I must visit X along the way. So look for the cheapest path that visits X versus the shortest path that maybe visits S, but also has the chance to look at paths that don't visit S. So here you're looking for an optimum on a larger, you have more chances to check. And just note that this triangle inequality, delta, is the length of the shortest path. It definitely doesn't mean that if I just look at the edges that immediately direct u to connect u to v, u to x, and x to v, what are the weights of each individual edges could be anything you want. So definitely it does not imply that the weight of this edge must be smaller than the sum of the weight of these two edges. 14 is smaller than 20. Make sense? You see the difference between the two examples? Here this path might visit, this path might possibly visit x, but also have the chance not to visit x. Okay. The difference between these two examples clear? Thanks everybody. We'll have better class next time.